So the other night I had this moment, and it was one of those. It was one of those. It's one of those moments where it's not like you question your sanity, because that's pretty much. Well, I'm an artist, so we all know that's pretty much not intact. But I was writing. It was late. It was pretty late at night. I was working on Zombie Radio 3, and I was fading fast. And the first time it happened, the first time I was typing along and did that number, I stopped and I checked my word count, and I was only at like 600 words of my usual 1,000 a day minimum. And my first thought was, okay, well, I'm really tired. I'll just stop and make up for it tomorrow morning. And as soon as I had that thought, I immediately said, no, I've got to soldier through this. I've got to get my 1,000 words. And I know that sounds ridiculous, that being chained down to that number is kind of silly, but there's a reason that I do that. So I pushed on. And I kept writing, and I kept nodding off, but I kept going, and I kept going, and I kept going. And I knew as I wrote that the next day when I went back and looked over things, that I would most likely have to rewrite a good majority of what I had written. And I was right. But at the same time, that kind of oddly aware and unaware, kind of conscious and unconscious a moment of writing, something really cool came out, and I took the story off in a direction that I didn't think it was going to go down. And when I reread it, even though some of the sentences made absolutely no sense and it was quite obvious that I was falling asleep, it was great to have spent that, allowed myself to write without those normal filters, to just let whatever was bubbling down in my subconscious to come out. And I was very pleased with the results. And even some of the sentences that on the surface didn't make any sense, it was really cool to watch how my brain functioned as I drifted off. And I salvaged most of it. Some of the sentences I even kind of left intact, because not incoherent babble, because it really wasn't incoherent babble, but the strange way in which I composed a few sentences, I just thought there's some artistry in that, so I left them. And I've done that before on a number of occasions where I kind of I sleep wrote things, and in the end it was so not ridiculous, but it was so interesting that I decided to salvage it. And I'm not saying that I'm going to do that more often, because it was rough. It was rough forcing myself through that. But the muse works in mysterious ways, and the craft of the act of creating art when your conscious mind doesn't have quite the grasp on reality that it should is fascinating. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should go into sleep deprivation and write, but there are those instances, and I get people asking me a lot how to get through writer's block, and I'm telling you right now that sleep deprivation could be could be a key to some people's woes. Of course, let's not take this to the extreme. I don't want people thinking that I'm saying, go a week without sleep, or go, which you couldn't anyway, go a good day or two without sleep and then write. But there are many reasons why I write at night. And that's one of them. Muse. And maybe what it is that our conscious mind kind of drifts away, allowing the subconscious to bubble forward, which has a stronger grasp or a stronger connection to our muse and to the universe. So when the conscious mind drifts away, the muse can work more powerfully and more easily. Maybe that's what it is. Of all the things I lost, I miss my mind the most. I don't know why I keep going back to that. I mean, I know a lot of artists and a lot of writers often say things like that about how the voices in their heads, but you know how I feel about that. I think it's ridiculous. It's insulting to the poor people that actually do suffer from those issues, but that's beside the point. So sleep deprivation. Who'd thunk it? Seriously. And, it's interesting that the older I get, the more my sleep schedule shifts such that I'm going to bed earlier and waking up earlier. Well, not going to bed. I'm going upstairs to lay down to bed, but I usually, once I'm in bed, I'm writing for a couple of hours. So the time in which my conscious mind starts to drift off gets earlier and earlier. So maybe this is going to happen more and more. So you are going to be able to sneak in through this subconscious back door, tap me on the metaphorical shoulder and say, let's go this way. Take this story over there. Make this character do this. You like that idea, don't you? You like that idea of being able to attach more and more puppet strings on me to be able to commandeer the meat sack that is me, or the mental meat sack, I guess you would say. But anyway, that's what happened. And I'm glad it did. And the lesson is that when I find myself nodding off, I'm just going to keep pushing through and let the magic happen. And then, of course, the next day, rewrite most of it, because it's some of it's incoherent. But anyway, that's where we are, Muse. We learn more and more every day. The layers of the onion peel back further and further. And what is going to be in the center of that onion? Will we find God there? I don't know. Let's find out, shall we?